Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know how sometimes we do a deep dive into something you might not think about every day?
Mm-hmm.
Well, today we're tackling something you use probably every single day, multiple times a day even.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Interjections.
Interjections.
Yeah, you know those little sounds, those little words we throw into conversations, like or oh, or hmm.
Okay, got it.
We've got this really cool article from Noble magazine called Speech Interjections Aren't Throwaway Lines.
Interesting title.
Yeah, and it features interviews with a couple of linguists, Mark Dingemans and Martina Vilchko, and basically they're making the case that these little sounds are more important than we think.
That's fascinating. So, like, what are they saying? What's the big deal about these little sounds we make?
Right, like we think of them as filler words, right?
Yeah.
Just noise.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're saying that they're actually essential to how we communicate, maybe even reveal something deeper about language itself.
Okay, now you've really got my attention. I'm definitely ready to take a deep dive into this.
So first, like, how often are we talking about here? Are these interjections really so common in our everyday conversations?
Well, you might be surprised. Dingemans, in his research, found that these little, like, one-word utterances, they actually make up, get this, 1 in 7 conversational turns.
1 in 7? Wow.
Hmm.
That's a lot more than I would have guessed. I'm going to be paying attention to that now for sure.
Yeah, you start listening for it. You'll hear it everywhere.
You know, it makes me wonder about, like, what about those moments when there is silence?
Silence.
Yeah, silence really golden, you know, or is it actually kind of awkward? Like, what happens when we try to avoid using these interjections?
Well, silence can definitely be powerful, like,
Yeah.
when you're pausing for effect or something.
Yeah.
But in terms of, like, smooth conversation, it might not be so great. There's this study by Janet Bavelas where, like, they had listeners stay totally silent.
Like, no feedback at all.
Mm-hmm. And the speakers really struggled. Like, they had trouble forming complete sentences and expressing themselves clearly. It was kind of rough, actually.
That's wild. It's like our brains are wired for that back and forth. Those little signals, even just an can make a huge difference.
It's true. And speaking of
No.
Dingemans talks about how is like this perfectly designed tool for turn-taking, especially during storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Your lips are sealed, it's super subtle, it doesn't interrupt the flow, but it lets the speaker know you're with them.
It's like the MVP of interjections.
Right. So much packed into just 2 little sounds.
But, okay, so it's helpful. But is there more to these sounds than just simple acknowledgement? Could they be doing something else, something deeper?
Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, they go way beyond just like a basic I hear you kind of thing.
Right.
Like Martina Vilchko talks about how interjections help us deal with all those unspoken assumptions we make in conversation.
Unspoken assumptions.
Right. We're always making assumptions about what the other person knows, what they believe.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And interjections help us kind of make those assumptions explicit, establish that common
I'm
ground.
following you, yeah.
Like, think about a phrase like, it's sunny out, isn't it?
Oh, right.
You're not just stating a fact, you're inviting confirmation. Or take the classic Canadian, it's nice out, eh? Same thing.
Oh, that's a good example.
It's a little nudge to make sure you're both on the same page about the weather, and by extension, about, like, your shared reality.
So basically, these little sounds are like mini social contracts.
Exactly, and they show how much we understand about language without even realizing it. You know, like, we instinctively know how to use these sounds correctly, even though we've never really been taught how. It's amazing.
Right. Vilchko actually argues that our mastery of interjections demonstrates this, like, deep unconscious knowledge of how conversation actually works.
It's like a hidden language within language. I like that. A hidden language within language.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where things get even more interesting. So, you know how we've been talking about AI and how it's getting so good at, like, mimicking human speech?
Yeah, it's kind of freaky sometimes.
Well, it turns out that even with all our technological wizardry, AI still struggles to really master the art of interjections.
Really? So, like, they can make a podcast that sounds almost human, but they can't quite get the ums and ahs, right?
Exactly. Like, Vilchko points out that the placement and the types of interjections in AI-generated speech, it often feels like just a little bit off.
So you can mimic the words, but not the music, so to speak.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It highlights how complex human communication really is. You know, like, AI might be able to grasp the words themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but it hasn't quite cracked the code of those, like, subtle, intuitive elements that make our conversations so So dynamic, so human.
It's like AI is still missing a piece of the puzzle when it comes to truly understanding how we talk to each other.
I think that's a really good way to put it. It's missing that secret ingredient, the interjection magic.
Okay, so then, like, why haven't we been studying these things more? I mean, they seem so fundamental to how we communicate, but it feels like this is a whole new area of research.
Right. And, Dingemans, he actually has a really interesting theory about that.
Okay, I'm listening.
He suggests that historically, linguistics has been way too focused on written language, like the formal structures, the grammar rules, all that stuff you find in textbooks.
That makes sense. Like, written language is how we preserve knowledge, right?
Yeah.
How we build institutions.
Exactly. But it also means we've kind of neglected the messy, spontaneous beauty of how we actually talk to each other.
Like, we've been so focused on the rules that we've missed the magic.
I love that. The magic. That's exactly what it is. And it's in those little moments, the ums and the ahs, those you-knows, that so much of the meaning is actually being created.
Okay, so if we're just starting to understand the importance of these interjections, like, how does that change how we think about language as a whole?
Well, Dinkmans actually goes so far as to suggest that interjections aren't just some, add-on to language. He's saying that they're actually at its very core. They're crucial for its complexity, for its evolution.
Whoa, that's a pretty radical idea.
Yeah.
So he's saying that, these tiny sounds are the foundation upon which all of human language is built.
It's a bold statement, right?
Yeah.
But it really makes you think, what if, instead of seeing interjections as, filler or noise, we start to see them as the actual building blocks of meaning?
The glue that holds our conversations together.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, what else have we been missing? What other linguistic treasures are hidden in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered?
I'm starting to feel like I need to go back and re-listen to every conversation I've ever had.
Haha, I know, right? It's like a whole new world has opened up.
It really has. This is honestly blowing my mind a little bit. I'm a little self-conscious now, though. I'm going to be hyper-aware of every little sound I make from now on.
Yeah, I think that's a natural reaction. But instead of feeling self-conscious about it, try to embrace this new awareness. See it as an opportunity to become, a more attuned listener.
And a more effective communicator.
Precisely.
It's not about, eliminating interjections altogether. That would be impossible. And probably sound really weird, too.
It would.
But it's more about, understanding the subtle role they play in shaping how we interact.
Exactly. It's all about that nuance.
So maybe instead of feeling self-conscious, I should be thanking you for giving me a superpower.
A superpower.
Yeah, the power to decode the hidden language of conversation.
I like that. The interjection decoder ring.
I bet our listeners are having the same aha moment right now. Starting to notice all those interjections popping up everywhere.
I hope so. It's like we've been speaking this secret code without even realizing it.
And now we have the key. But okay, so we've delved into this fascinating world of interjections. What can our listeners actually do with this newfound knowledge? How can they apply it to their everyday lives?
Well, there are a few things your listeners can do to really explore this further. And the best part is they can start today. So one simple thing is just start paying attention to how you use interjections, how other people use them.
Okay, so be more mindful.
Yeah.
But mindful of what exactly?
Notice what kind of impact those little sounds have. How do they change the flow of the conversation, the meaning?
Ah, okay. So it's we're becoming interjection detectives.
I love that. Interjection detectives. That's a great way to think about it.
So we're paying attention. What else can we do?
Well, you could also, explore how interjections work across cultures.
Ooh, yeah. Isn't it different in different places?
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating, really. It reveals a lot about how language shapes how we act with each other. Even a simple, what about it? Well, in one culture, it might mean you're confused.
Right.
But in another culture, it might mean you agree or that you understand.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I remember when I was traveling in...
Where'd you go?
I was in a country, and I was so thrown off by how they use
Yeah, what?
I thought they were agreeing with me, but they were really just saying they were listening.
Oh, wow. So many ways to get things mixed up.
Right. So it's worth really paying attention to those cultural differences.
Okay, so we're paying attention. We're learning about different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
What's the big takeaway here? Why does all this even matter?
Well, to me, it shows just how incredible human language really is. We've got this whole system of communication, and we often don't even realize how much we're communicating with just those, like, tiny, tiny sounds.
Yeah, we take it for granted.
Exactly. And I think the more we understand about those subtle ways we use language, the more we can appreciate all the richness, all the nuance, all the complexity that's packed into every conversation.
It's like we've been given this amazing gift,
We have.
and we're only just starting to, like, unwrap it.
And the best part is there's always more to discover, always more to learn. So keep those ears open.
Right. Be curious, keep exploring, and don't forget the power of those ums and ahs and all those little sounds.
Exactly.
Well, this deep dive has been a total eye-opener for me. I never would have guessed those little sounds we make could be so, so revealing.
Me too. It's been such a pleasure exploring this with you.
Likewise. And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of, well, the world of interjections. Who knew they were so interesting, right?
Right. It just goes to show you there's always something new to learn, something new to discover.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep those coming. And as always, thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.